Odia Esaid is a professor of law at the University of Colorado. He's joining us from Boulder in Colorado. So thank you very much indeed for being with us. Caroline Leavitt, the spokesperson for the White House there, saying that this was a very good plan. But it seems to those of us who are trying to get the broad picture in this, separate Gaza from the rest of Palestine. Does that mean from a legal standpoint, Gaza is going to be legally in a different place to the rest of Palestine?
Wow. That's quite a question, not because it's not a good question, but because I think we've seen that the Israelis and the Americans have been over, not just weeks or months or years, but decades have been trying to solve, in their words, the Palestinian issue without recognizing in any way Palestinian national rights in these lands and in these territories. So I think this idea of separating Gaza has been floated before, and it's just a repeat of many proposals and many kind of proposed solutions that have been in existence that deny Palestinians their right to self-determination, which has been recognized by the International Court of Justice. The West Bank, the Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem have been declared as occupied illegally by the International Court of Justice, and that the Israelis they had till the end of last month to end the occupation. Of course, they didn't. So this idea of separating Gaza from an American, European, Israeli point of view is nothing new. But it in fact doesn't solve any of the legitimate, or doesn't in any way meet the legitimate needs, aspirations, and rights of the Palestinian people.
It has been clear from the outset that the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinians generally have not been part of these negotiations to reach this 20-point deal. The Palestinian Authority, if I understand it correctly, is involved in legal cases that are being brought against the US or Israel at the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. Now, my question really is, what happens to those cases if either if the deal is agreed or if the deal isn't agreed?
Yeah, well, I think, the United States and Israel, since the late 80s, since the first Palestinian Intifada, when the Palestinian question was kind of re-hoisted onto the world stage, have always de-emphasized the role of international law, if not outright ignored it, or wished that it had gone away. And so I think we've seen in the fact that there hasn't been a kind of a concerted international effort to enforce some of these rulings based on, American and Israeli positions and pressure. I think we've seen that those efforts are being de-emphasized. And something like this, a proposal like this, the American-Israeli proposal, the Trump plan, whatever it's called, has been designed to, in essence, just kind of continue the position of ignoring international law and relegating all these efforts to the sidelines in the hopes that they'll kind of die and sort of wither on the vine, you might say.
I'm just reading through the 20-point plan that, or at least the summary that we have here. A lot of it, as I've discussed over the last 48 hours or so, is to do with the rebuilding, or the hopes to rebuild Gaza, ostensibly for the benefit of the people of Gaza. It says nobody's going to be forced to leave Gaza. Those who wish to leave will be free to do so. There's apparently going to be an amnesty for Hamas fighters who choose to give up their weapons and so on. But what does not appear to be the case, and I appreciate that this is a broad picture, is that there is any sort of legal underpinning to any of this, that there is any sort of legal structure, that there is any sort of legal redress for people in Gaza who might feel that they have cases that they could bring, particularly against, say, the Israeli military.
Yes, and I hate to keep kind of hammering on this point, but yes, that's been entirely the case. The Israelis do not believe, and the Americans support them very strongly in this, to the point where we've seen in the case of the International Criminal Court issuing actual arrest warrants for Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Gallant, that these international efforts, these international tribunals, are to be basically ignored. And the role of international law has been, basically not accepted by the Americans and the Israelis. And so we're seeing that's reflected in this plan. And the idea is, I think what we're seeing is that this is a plan that is insisting on a kind of Palestinian surrender in the area of the Gaza Strip, the total surrender, which, of course, does not jibe with the general tenor of the negotiations over the past 2 years to reach a fair and just solution, especially in the light of the massive Israeli crimes and what is now recognized by even the United Nations, which held on as long as it could, but finally a commission of the United Nations found that this is in fact genocide. So the idea that these great crimes are being kind of yet again, in an American-led effort with deep Israeli participation, is trying to push all this under the rug in the insistence that the Palestinians surrender, which has, I think, been the case and or has been the position of the Americans and the Israelis for decades.
It's really interesting to get your thoughts on this. Wadai Said, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.